Hi there. Thanks for tuning in. This is the Follow Your Passion podcast. I'm your host, Erwin Wils. I'm a mindset and business strategist and founder of Millionaire Life Strategy. In this podcast, I'm interviewing my clients and other entrepreneurs that are following their passion and make a good living out of it. When you want to know more about me or what I can do for you, check out my website, millionaireLifestrategy.com. But first, check out this episode of Follow Your Passion. Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of the Follow Your Passion podcast. Today, I don't have one guest. I have actually two guests. They are the wife and husband, and they're the owners of Maitri Centre for Love and Compassion. And they're going to introduce themselves. So go ahead.
Thank you so much, Erwin. Hi, I'm Giselle Taraba.
David Taraba.
Yes, we are co-owners of Maitri Centre. And like Erwin said, we are husband and wife and have two awesome children. And we do work on self-love and self-compassion.
Great. So, as I understand it, it's both your passion to bring greater love and compassion into people's personal and work life. So, how did that start?
Yeah. Okay. So if you do you want me to start?
No, you go.
So it's interesting. So David had a vision of having like a center where people come together for spirituality and love many, many, many years ago. And I was completely resistant. I was not at that stage. I was working in child welfare as a director and was trying to bring just greater love and change into the child welfare system. I had always dreamed of being in the child welfare system because my parents had like horrible childhoods and we kind of lived in that circumstance. And so my dream was to work within the child welfare system. And once I got there, long story short, the system is riddled with fear and control and power over and separation and division rather than bringing us closer together. I wanted to work at a place that would have helped my grandmother and my mother and her siblings stay together and have a joyful life, but that's just not the current system. And so I went out to seek something that would have helped the people that I worked with because there was a lot of workplace suffering, and I was suffering myself. But I really sought out something to help because I was a leader within the organization. But then I stumbled on self-compassion. And I found that the more love and compassion I gave myself, the more I gave myself, which I was seeking for externally, the more love and compassion I had for other people, the more harmonious my relationships were, like with my husband and with other people in my life. And I thought to myself, well, we really need to do this in this environment. And I worked to bring it to the child welfare system. The way it's structured, it just didn't fit. And so I revisited that conversation with my husband about, hey, remember many moons ago, we were talking about potentially doing this. How can we help, people flourish more in my conversations with my husband? And I won't speak for him. But really, it's about helping each person's willing to change, about unlearning all the messages they could, at their core, be more authentically themselves, which is loving and compassion.
Nice. And who came up with the name Maitri Centre? Does it have a certain meaning or?
It does. Well,
It would be you.
Yes, it would be me. We had lots of conversations about the different names. Remember, there was a big long one that we had, the LLC, whatever. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, I wanted a name that really spoke to what was at the core of the center. So Maitri means loving kindness in Sanskrit. And that's really is the core. It's not about romantic love for us. It's about unconditionally loving and accepting ourselves, which compassion can help do. And so we thought it really encompassed what we stand for.
Yeah.
Nice. So, David, while I'm talking to you, most when you talk about love and compassion, it's if you put it really black and white, most of the times it's a women thing, right? So how do you fit in, if I can ask it so bluntly?
Sure. Well, the love that we deal with isn't really um, romantic love, physical love. The broader, higher definition of what love is, which is it's everything, right? It's involved in everything. Everything has an aspect of love, and it's allowing all things to happen. That's what we ground condition our self-compassion in, right? Is allowing all things. So it's not the romantic love that we think of as the human perspective. It's love for oneself. It's developing a relationship with oneself is what we speak of. It's the unconditional love. So I guess in a nutshell, to keep it simple, is it deals with the hard conversations that we often don't want to have with ourselves until we're ready to go through that final phase of awakening and then on to our own enlightenment. So how did I did I answer your question? Sorry.
Oh yeah, and it's actually I think it was meant to be for us to have the recording of the episode today, because last weekend I finished a 3 days training, which was about effortlessly manifesting, and you could almost say that the core of the training was about not who you are but what you are. And they said basically that what you are is pure love, right? So you should it's like uncovering several layers of an onion, right, till you come to the core of yourself, and that's pure love. And if you are truly connecting with yourself, then things happen for a reason. And that's I think people lose the connection with their true self. And that's about what you say, self-trust, self-confidence, but it's also self-love. And we're conditioned by an environment where we grow up. And that's a pity, because we have to get back to ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the journey of the physical, right? So the physical experience is, you come here, you have with the original feeling of separation, of isolation, of individuality, and then you move on to growing the relationship inevitably with oneself, because that's all you have. You have your relationship with yourself, and that's it. Everything else is a reflection of aspects of yourself and how they come back to you in the surrounding physical realm. Right? At least that's my perspective.
Yeah. And that was my experience. I love what David said. That was my experience. Before I used to externalize things in my relationship. If he only, gave me more praise or loved me more or did this. But when I started to give myself love, and I was able to give myself everything that I was seeking for externally, including my partner, I didn't need him to be different. I didn't need him to be anybody other than who he was. I accepted him because I accepted myself. And so it really is. And we mirror to each other the areas that we need to grow. And that's what makes the relationship so helpful and beautiful. And I think that's what we all do for one another. Everybody's a mirror to help us really uncover what we really believe in, who we're being.
Nice.
And you said a good point when you were talking about need. So as long as you identify with a need, then you are still playing the game of like duality, right? Like the whole outside world being separate from self. And you still maintain that you're not, maybe you don't understand that you're actually creating the experience that is reflected back to you. But when we have that need, you're grounded in the duality, right? You're grounded in that rational mind. And you're in doing that, you've limited where you can go in that inward journey, because your focus is on need, right? I need a relationship. I need love. I need money. I need all these things. But what most of us don't understand is that we're limiting ourselves because we are in that frequency, so to speak, of need. So your creation, your experience will be rounded around everything to do with need. So you're going to reflect back to you more need, right? I need a loving relationship. So you're probably going to see areas where you're not getting anything. So guess what? It just reinforces my need.
Yeah,
right? But when you release that need, then you can actually allow it to actually come to you, whatever it is. That's where we are with the center. It's a tough question, right? Like compassion is a very, very hard subject. Love is very, very challenging for people to truly step into loving themselves in order to express love for their surroundings. But it's not easy. It's not frou-frou. It's not the let's all sit around and kumbaya and love one another. And,
Yeah.
It's not. That's not.
Yeah, I think big part of this challenge is that you can tell people that they have to start loving themselves, but when you tell them that, it's on a conscious level, which means the mind is involved, and it's the mind that's the biggest obstacle in this internal journey.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it's like, I don't know how to love myself, and if I try to think about it, I'm using the mind, and you shouldn't use the mind. So it's
well, you will always use your mind, but I know where you're going with that. What we do is, first of all, we don't tell people what to do. There's none of that, because your journey of your own awakening, your own awareness, your own path to your own enlightenment is yours alone. And it will be different for everybody else on their, because it all happens perfectly for all the individuals that make up our world, right? It's going to happen to everybody at some point along the journey. It may be, I don't know, 100, it may be a long ways away, maybe tomorrow, but nobody will know that. They probably won't even know that until it's right there in front of them. So we don't tell people what they need to do, because, again, then we bring in need. And to your point, we're right back in the rational mind, grounded in duality. And then there's a right and a wrong, a good and a bad, and a specific way to do things. And like you were speaking about manifesting. Well, true manifesting, what we do every day truly doesn't come with an outcome. Like when we try to architect a manifestation, and we're just trapped in our own mind. We get caught up in the thinking, the rational mind. Manifestation is you desire a creation, and then you allow that creation to unfold in one way, shape, or form. And it may be wonderful. It may not be as ideal, but it's still the beauty of experience, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's hard. Keep seeing hard, right?
One of the things I've observed in terms of doing this work is that the more that people start to practice compassion and self-love, the more those objections that are in there will start to come out, because they're coming out to be healed. They're coming out to be acknowledged. And so the more that you do that, and so the point is really not to get caught up in that story, that what the mind is telling you, the story about who you are or who you were, and about all those objections. I think one of the things we talk about really is releasing the resistance, allowing those emotions to come up, acknowledging them, allowing them to flow with ease and grace, rather than, oh my God, I'm having these thoughts, I shouldn't have these thoughts, I'm never going to learn to love myself. And so that resistance is really what we try to work with, to soften, so that all those thoughts can be allowed to go, and all those beliefs can be allowed to go, and so then you can then start to embody a difference.
Yeah. Nice.
Which isn't easy.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Challenging. And it truly can't be taught. Right? It's something that has to just...
I remember what one of my coaches once said, he said it about business. He said, business is simple, but it doesn't mean it's easy. And I think that applies to a lot of things.
Yeah. It's true.
So true.
Yeah. So what are, if you look at your clients that come to you for your support, for your assistance, what are the I would almost say the default struggles or challenges they have that they think, maybe your center could help them with it?
Yeah. So the default struggles that we have seen really are the belief that things can't get better. It's the belief that they can't do it. And that's probably the most challenging one, because in order for you to experience something, you have to believe you can do it. You have to open up yourself to the potentiality. A lot of it is, so for example, I've worked with a number of people that will justify where they are rather than examine why they have some of those beliefs and let go of those beliefs so that we can start to embody a new identity. It's about embodying a different identity. Those beliefs we hold are just habits. They're thoughts we think every day, and therefore we create a habit, and there we create a new identity. Myself as a victim, myself as traumatized, myself as less than, myself as unworthy and unlovable. And so it's about releasing some of those beliefs and willing to see ourselves in a new light, working on the different habits that a new embodiment, and therefore experiencing that reality. But that can be challenging for people. And so it's interesting to me when we observe the journeys of the people we work with, that the people that really have the furthest to go are really the ones that try to justify where they are. And I've done it myself. It's hard for us to really look at our lives and say, I've created it. I've led up myself to this point with all the thoughts and beliefs, habits I've done. And acknowledging yourself and facing that takes courage. This is why David was saying this is tough work. It isn't just fluffy, kumbaya, we're all lighting up, we love everyone. It's being able to look at all those aspects of yourself that you don't appreciate and being there for yourself and showing up for those aspects so that you can then do that for others.
Yeah. And I think who we attract are individuals that are, I guess, ready to step into their own authority as the creator of their experience. Keep it simple, right? There's many people out there who are on quote unquote spiritual journey, but it's all grounded in the rational mind. So it's, what do I have to do? What to get me from A to B? You tell me, what do I have to do? Do I have to say this 20 times a day? Do I have to go over here and eat something over here? Do I have to, meditate in this particular way? And that's wonderful for those people on their journey, but that's not where we are. Because again, it's limited. The rational mind in itself, it's construct. It has limitations, and where we are headed is beyond.
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense to people. So, oh my God, that must be crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Right, but I always, sometimes when I have clients, I use hypnotherapy to help my clients, and I always say to them that we're getting like 12 million plus signals that enters our body, that our subconscious minds gathers, it processes, it filters, and about 60 of those will be forwarded to a conscious mind. With these 60 bits per second, we create our own reality. And I sometimes say, like the chair you're sitting on, it's putting pressure on your body. And now you're aware of this pressure because I'm putting the focus on it. But this pressure has always been there since you've been sitting there, but it got filtered out. And then I start understanding that the mind, the conscious mind, can only process so little information. And it's where you focus on that will be processed towards your conscious mind.
For sure. It's the unconscious mind is still the dominant force in what creates your experience. That's why often people they're so confounded, because myself included on my journey, I was like this. I'm like, I'm doing the right thing. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Why don't I see the results? Well, okay. So you like you said, you have this limited conscious awareness at any given time, but the dominant unconscious force, which is really doing a lot of, like, that's where a lot of the energy is focused, in the unconscious mind, up until such point when your awareness increases, so your conscious awareness because that's what we're doing. That is enlightenment, is becoming more consciously aware. So you become more aware of what was once unconscious, where all these identities are trapped, and they're just running, and they have a lot of gravity because they're so emotionally grounded in all the stuff we see. And then you choose then to either allow them when they come up to go, or this is still working for me, I enjoy it, I'll hold on to that. And this one, oh God, I'm worried about something that happened when I was 6 years old on the playground. Okay, I'm gonna let that, right? Because but it's an interesting process, the whole.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
It's interesting how much energy we put to the things we don't want to create, right? Like the words we speak have power. The thoughts we think have power. And so we so often speak negatively about our lives. And then we wonder why we experience what we experience. And so one of the things we focus on is really like, what do we want to create? Where do we want to put that energy attention? Because energy is currency, right? Like if your thoughts and your words create, then think about all the times that you're putting that currency into things you don't want to create, things here. And so it is a shift. But
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
No, I was just going to add to that I've been feeling into the idea of, to build off your point on how much we're so good at creating what we may not want, but we're very good at making that happen. And I kind of feel like it has to do with, like, we've created a collective consciousness, right, amongst all of us together, that we don't, you can't affect somebody's personal space, but we kind of agree that we have this understanding that kind of flows, and everybody's putting out their own energy and their own being in this collective soup that we all kind of swim in. Well, I think we have created structures or patterns or processes that we're not aware of, right? This is on the collective conscious level, that we've agreed that elements of suffering seem to have a lot of gravity. They have a lot of pull. And I'm wondering if that's maybe just it was part of the evolution of the collective consciousness, that we kind of focused together on the things that we lacked, so to speak.
Well, it's also that I always say that the subconscious wants to protect us, keep us safe, and take care of us. So there's this bit of negative focus, which has been generation on generation being passed over, right? Because it's like a survival mode, right? We tend to have a negative focus because it might hurt ourselves, right? And we don't want that. So if for instance, I think you already said it also in some other words, if you ask somebody what they want, they're very good at saying what they don't want anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you ask, but what do you want? They have a hard time getting the words for that.
Because those attention points aren't there.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? Yeah, it's true. So
yeah,
that's all part of the process, right?
And to add to what David was saying, I think this is why, from our perspective, a lot of people that talk about compassion use the definition that has suffering in it. So it's an awareness of suffering and a move toward suffering, right? To want to alleviate the suffering. But for us, it isn't about suffering. We don't want to put our energy and attention on our suffering. We want to put our energy and attention on what we do want to create, acknowledging that we have created. And so for us, it's, as David mentioned, it's that allowing things to exist, and then making a choice, a more conscious choice to, with love and kindness, to live our dream without resistance, without judgment, and with more curiosity. And I think that helps us kind of start to look at some of the reasons why we might be just in survival. But that's survival. Like you talked about the point of survival. A little voice, I believe, in going back to what David said about the consciousness, I believe it was placed there, or we paid attention to it because we needed to, many perhaps. But now it runs the show. Now it's the boss. Now it tells us that we are, like that people are horrible and the world is bad and that everything is fear. Now it's running the show and it's running the world. And so it's, from our perspective, it is about stepping into your own autonomy, your own power, and taking that power back and saying, okay, you're the voice I may want to listen to, like one of many in the committee that say, okay, well, we need to worry about this. But you're not running the show. I think that's the why we're currently who we are conscious.
Yeah. Getting to a place where you are not of this particular aspect in the world, but you're still in it, right? It's a different frame.
Oh yeah.
So, I'm in a crowd, but I don't have to do exactly what the crowd's doing.
Yeah, exactly. But it takes a certain mindset to do that. I mean, we are, of course, we're habitual creatures, but we're also social animals. We want to be a part of something. We don't want to be excluded. So
but that's taking this
stand, that I'm in a crowd, but I don't need to be a part of it. I'm truly myself.
That was the word, need. See?
Yeah.
When you're in the crowd, but you don't need to be a part of the crowd, then you're free. You're free to be in the crowd. But if the crowd wants to go, walk off a cliff because that's what everybody's doing, you don't need to do it because you don't. You just don't.
And I love
the beauty of
what
it.
David has said, because it reminds me of, when you stand in your own authority, you belong to yourself. You have that sense of belonging no matter where you go. And the interesting thing is that if you don't stand in your own authority, your energy will easily be swayed by the crowds. And it's so interesting because people ask themselves, I was in this crowd and I was doing all of these things. How could I do these things? This is not who I am. People wonder about, Nazi Germany and the people that just 20 million people followed. How come? When you don't stand in your own authority energetically, you will be swayed by the strongest energy. And so, because you gave it authority. And so I think this is really about standing in your own power and being able to move away from that need into your own mastery.
Yeah.
Letting go of that collective consciousness. We're not talking about, hundreds of years ago when you were on your journey of enlightenment and you had to go live in the forest by yourself because, you had to go. That energy is finished, right? So we're doing this in a societal, frame of reference. It's not about not being part of things, but to what keeps coming back is once you're free of the need to be a part of whatever it is, then you are free to be a part of it without all that baggage, which often is trapped in the subconscious.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's where we focus. So when we talk about compassion with people, it inevitably right away, because I always, compassion is allowing all things, right? Much like love is unconditional love is allowing all things. Compassion is an aspect. It's right in that love bandwidth, we'll say.
Mm-hmm.
But when you do that, you inevitably go to the conclusion, people do that, okay, I agree with you, I totally agree with you, but what about this? And then some.
What about child abuse?
Yeah, well, some nasty expression comes out.
You just allow that to be.
Right. So I'm not telling you to allow any of it. And I think what people miss is that we're focused on the inner journey. So it's allowing all things to happen within themselves. So then you build that unconditional, loving, compassionate relationship for yourself. And then as a creator of your experience, guess what happens? You have a wonderful outpicturing. Things start to change. Things start to fade away. So the worry about these catastrophic negative things happening in the outside world, that starts to change, right? That starts to go away because your focus isn't there, because you're not being pulled by those aspects, those identities, the subconscious traits. All that stuff starts to just go, and then you don't have to worry.
And the reason why those anti-whatever movements don't work is because what you resist persists, right? Because you actually are inadvertently giving it energy and attention. And so that's why the war on crime doesn't work. The war on drugs doesn't work, because we are putting our energy and attention. And so David's right. Like as soon as we take our attention off that,
Yeah.
starts to lose that.
But it has to happen, right? You can't make people,
Oh, of course.
right? Like if you're very still grounded in a duality, like I still go in, we're still in it because you're still part of society, right? Like we're not gonna. We're in the physical, so you're always going to be a part of what creates the physical. There's no two, but what we feel is that we see a progression of, like if you're fighting for a cause, if you have some form of cause, there will always be an opposite to that cause. You will never find an answer in anything, and that's great as a diversion. People love it. I've done it. Right, you're fighting for this, but it's kind of where we go is to that place in between that so you have that over there, so they have both sides, both spectrums of the duality, right? But then you have so you have all that stuff in between that can also work as a potential. So it's not trying to not have the extremes, but it's being in that there's so much potential between those extremes, right? So for all things to kind of be.
Nice. So I wanted to focus on a little different part because it's great to have the both of you here. I want to ask you how it is to run a company together. So
go ahead.
How is it that are you doing both the same things, or are you complementing each other, or do you argue sometimes, or how is it to run a business together, being a husband and wife?
Interesting.
Yeah, it's I personally love it. I do. We do different things, and we do complement each other greatly. Like David has a lot of knowledge, not only just on the technical side, but also the more spiritual, and like he helps me gain perspective. We do have when you like leaning conversations, so they're not challenging, but it sometimes stretches us. For example, the compassion one is one. So in the beginning, I had a very different definition. I was more like wider wall. And so we would have conversations and say to me, Giselle, compassion is allowing all things to be. I like understanding and seeing the perfection and the divinity, And I would be like, what the heck are you talking about? What about child abuse and this and that? But as you start to kind of expand your knowledge and understand about the point of non-resistance and non-judgment, curiosity, you start to see how compassion can really flourish from those perspectives. So we help each other gain perspective and stay on the more process-oriented stuff. We do together. I sometimes take on the more coaching one-on-one, more about the interviews and so on. The more technical one, but it's amazing how we have like synergistically come together and kind of make this thing that we had talked about like many months ago. David also has another separate business as well, which he runs as well on his own. So it's sort of like managing all those things. There's everything. There is love and compassion in this process. There's also, frustration sometimes when he's in that business and I have to be in this business.
Yeah.
But there's always growth and understanding. So, and I think that's what keeps us still showing up.
We're still able to identify that we both have our own journey. But yes, we've come together as a common driving force or goal or whatever you want to desire to put forth whatever that we're doing. But we're still, if Giselle wants to do something that doesn't resonate with me or that I'm not really drawn to at this point, then she does it, vice versa, right? So like that works well too, because we're not trying to pull each other in ways that we don't want to go. We may push each other as a reflection of ourselves, you know what I mean? Like, so when we have difficult conversations, I'm really having a conversation, pushing myself. It just comes through Giselle, which is wonderful because we can get angry with each other and then get over it and see it for what it was, right? Because we're able to do that. But from a purely business perspective, it does help that, because we don't have a lot of that ego that drives things to kind of bend people. And there's no power over in our organization. Like, we're not trying to be the only person that's ever done anything.
Oh no.
And that's it's so thank you for mentioning that, because I will say that's probably been a big part of this journey for me. In the beginning, when we were talking about Maitri and existence, I had a very rigid perspective on how I think should go. And I think that caused friction between my husband and I. But, in conversation and in working with him and reflecting, the minute that I let go and said, okay, I can do certain things and he can do other things, and then we're just allowing it to evolve into these beautiful things. It evolved into better things than I thought I could imagine. But it was, like he said, letting go of that ego that, I'm coming from a workplace and thinking that things should be X, Y, or Z, and being open to the potential. Sometimes it feels challenging. Sometimes it's challenging to do that.
I would say that's the more challenging aspect of it, is creating a business that is not grounded in, for lack of it, just to keep things simple, in that 3D mentality, right?
Yeah.
So everything has an X, Y, an A, B to get to C kind of thing, a linear framework, which well, not all, but a lot of businesses still go that way, right? So you have an idea of an outcome, you have an expectation, and then the old way is, well, you're going to hell or high water, I'm going to make it work.
I'm going to grind it out and step A, B, C, or D.
So part of our process in releasing that within ourselves has allowed this business to kind of show up in ways that we didn't see it. Yeah. Just allow it. That's what we are, right?
Yeah.
And I think that, I'm myself, I'm in the business with my wife as well. And I think that the biggest strength, and I see that with you guys as well, is have this unconditional support of one another, but also giving each other room to grow and develop and to do your own thing. And of course, if there are some decisions to be made, right? Of course, you can have some very heavy conversations, because you're both in it, right? You should, especially if money is involved, you should both be behind the decision you're making. But it's those conversations keep you sharp, sometimes give you new insights, because once something got you focused, you tend to have blinders on. And it definitely helps if you have a spouse that is asking questions that you didn't want to ask yourself. So you start thinking over it again and again.
Yeah.
But at the end, you make a decision that feels good. And if you have this unconditional support of your spouse, and that's the basics of success in the business, I guess.
Yeah, that's nice.
And it also helps if you're both in the business that you know what the other person is doing, because you're in the same business.
Yeah, there's a great deal of trust. I trust my husband because I trust myself. Mm-hmm. That's one of the things that I learned about this relationship, was that when there was no trust for other people, was that I didn't trust myself to be able to cope with anything. Like the other person did something. But I have a lot of trust in myself, and I definitely trust his perspective.
Yeah, we went through, a lot of the evolution of our individual relationships, but which impacts your coming together, right? So, like most every couple, we had our elements of codependence, right? Not in the traditional catastrophic negative sense, obviously, but everything that you depend on somebody for that has to deal with a relationship translates to a codependence. Right? So even just counting on somebody for whatever can lead to dependence, which is so we allowed that evolution to kind of take place. And once that kind of, it was those, you want to talk, those were hard conversations. Like getting past all those things, you seeing yourself and you're like, oh my God. So when that kind of ran its course, then, this stuff is like Giselle was saying, like, you trust the other person only because you trust yourself. So you start to love yourself. You gain that relationship because those things are that you relied on that outside world, which is in that case the other person for, have now been allowed to fade away. So you're not looking for that because guess what? It's back here inside, right? It's with you. So then, yeah, it comes through. You can focus on what you truly desire versus what you think you need to have. And that is reflected in our relationship. As long as you do everything that I want you to do.
And I will also say it's also been reflected in our conversation, in our relationship with our children.
Yeah.
Right? Like I've definitely evolved. Like there was a lot of resistance at the time. And through like releasing that resistance, dealing with curiosity rather than compassion, curiosity rather than judgment, and really interacting with the kids with compassion, it's morphed our relationship. You know, like I don't get into power struggles anymore about, or when I do, I'm able to shift out of them much quicker around like the cleaning and the thing and all that. Like it just brings so much suffering into your household when it's not necessary.
Yeah.
Like
and that will affect business too.
Nice. So I'm afraid we could talk hours on those subjects, you know, because I love it. Like I said, I just came back from a 3 days training. So my head is still full of the training, and I got some great insights, by the way. It's wonderful to have those moments. I guess your clients also have those moments that I get this insights or revelations that totally transforms them instantly. Is there a certain example that comes to mind of one of your clients that came to you for help that totally transformed his or her life that comes to mind that you could mention in the show?
Yeah, I can. Well, you know, I can't name names, whatever. So I was speaking generality. I was working with a woman who, like, the beginning of the journey was really, really challenging, and was really challenged in all areas of her life. And I believe that it was after 5 sessions, her life had totally turned around, turned into a very positive person, understood that some of the workplace challenges she was having were actually something that she was creating, but she was not aware that her lack of self-compassion was really reflecting on what was happening in the workplace. So that shifted for her. But one of the things, I do want to point this out, one of the things that both David and I say is that it's not us doing this, it's the person doing it for themselves. Mm-hmm. We're just sort of like offering you a guidebook and saying, okay, well, you know, like these are things that will help you be more in touch with yourself, you know, unlearning and churning on these beliefs and really answering these questions is helping you tap into more of yourself. So it is you doing the same. It's you doing the shift. That's why you can't do it for people. And so she shifted herself in a very short time with us working together. But really, what I say to her all the time is, because she says to me, she'll, you know, like people will send me things, will be like, oh, you know, I can thank you. You did, and I'm like, no, you did this. Because then when you start to become dependent on people, you think that they're safe. Nobody's saving anybody. We're all each saving ourselves, but we're helping ourselves through the journey. So David has helped me a lot during my journey. He holds the map, but he cannot save me, right? So he shows me the path. He asks me questions, helps me uncover some of this stuff, helps me reflect back. And I do that same thing for other people. And this is how we get ourselves where we want to be. Yeah. This is where we help walk each other home to enlightenment.
Yeah. We just provide the potential, but like what you were saying, I don't have a specific example because I just look at it as a wonderful expression, a wonderful happening of a person, an individual taking authority for something. That's what happens when you have an aha moment. You're taking authority, you're taking ownership for whatever aspect or identity or belief you're either releasing or something, allowing something else to come in, another piece of knowledge turning into wisdom. Boom, you've taken that next little step on your journey into your sovereignty, like your freedom, which is wonderful. So that's how I reflect on those things. It's just another moment like that, right? Because I can tell you like I tell people 100 times, and people can tell me 100,000 times the same thing. And then until I take it, once I take it in, and then it becomes mine, then I'd be like, hey, guess what? I just thought of this.
Yeah.
Right?
This new learning.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
It's that taking that ownership, that authority of back.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Nicely said indeed. And it's the same about with hypnosis as well. You know, a lot of trainers also say that all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. The only thing is that we are creating the circumstances in which the clients can make this transformation or get this revelation or get this insights of those aha moments. We're just creating the circumstances in which it can happen.
You're being the mirror.
Exactly.
Wonderful.
Right.
Yeah.
So
it bends the mind, though.
I guess I already know more or less where it will go, but if you could share a little tip or little piece of wisdom with the audience, what would it be?
Wisdom with the audience. At this point in our current, what comes to mind for me when I feel into that is people are pushing on themselves a lot. Most of us are still identify with the outside world as the cause, and we're at the effect of it. But inevitably, there's a lot of push on people, on their beingness. They don't understand it. My advice to people is to just take a breath, learn, be very good, be a master at taking breath and just kind of slow down. Just try to allow things to come to you, even just allow things to go by you. That's what I notice. I witness people, especially with driving. Driving is crazy where we are. I don't know where you're located. Where are you located?
I'm located in the Netherlands.
Yeah, so I imagine it's just as busy there, but you can't go anywhere here without people just freaking out on each other on the highway and stuff. So you can tell, right? It's a reflection of where people are. They're just very, the world is pushing on us, whether we want it or not. And that's where it's not going to go away. It's going to have the illusion of getting more intense, and then it will eventually start to dissipate. But learning to take time for yourself, right? Through the breath, even it's very simple. You just take a couple breaths and just bring yourself back to yourself. And then you can kind of start to go through things. That's simple. But it works. It works wonderful. I'm sure you do that with your clients.
Yeah, definitely. It's actually your advice reminds you of a quote I once read, that in order to have a healthy life, you should meditate for 1 hour each day. Except when you're busy, then you need to meditate 2 hours.
Exactly. But see, I take meditation in as everything we do. So for me, meditation is in a different altered state. This is meditative. You're conscious, your living day-to-day life is actually a meditation, because what are you doing in it? We're all working to find that wonderful balance point, right? And that conscious awareness that we traditionally think we need to go into a meditative state for, but then what? You come back into this world and you're like, oh my God, it sucks. Okay? So you bring that back here. Breathe here.
Yeah. And
anyway.
I love that you said that, because it is about that inner stillness. It's amazing how many people are holding their breath. When we're most tense, we hold our breath. It's amazing how, as I was going through my journey, there would be days when I was noticing myself. I was really kind of getting into the awareness of my body, and then I would stop breathing in the most tense moments, and I'm like, breathe, take a breath. It's amazing. So that is really actually powerful advice. But again, it's one of those, it's simple, but people don't realize that because it's about allowing, right? We don't have to think about breathing. We don't have to think about beating of our heart. Naturally, the body does what it wants to do. It wants homeostasis. It wants peace. But we resist it. We resist our breath. We resist everything in our lives. And it's that resistance that keeps us stuck. And so the allowance is what really starts to get us on that journey forward.
Yeah, and coming back to oneself, right?
Yeah, no, I think that it's already a challenge for a lot of people just to be in the present.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. So in the expression of holding your breath, that is removing yourself from your center. That's what we're trying to do. Like not by the holding your breath, but the holding your breath is the expression, the example of it, because we get so removed, right? Like we are resisting ourselves so much to such a degree that we're kind of outside beside ourselves, like when you're really feeling that you're at the affect of the surrounding world, that's what you're experiencing. You're experiencing this kind of removal from being with yourself. And so the breath is a wonderful identifier of that. And my son is very good at it. He's 12 years old, but when he's playing a video game, right, which is an altered state of reality, he's constantly because he's here and then he's not here. He's somewhere. He's like beside him, in that other. So it's just and we're always telling him, just breathe. I'm like, just breathe. The game's still there. Just let it come in and let it go out, right? And then you can actually enjoy it more because you're not so focused on being at the affect of what's going on the screen, right?
Yeah. Nice. So, if people want to know more about you or get in touch with you, or maybe even get in touch with the center, how can they do that?
Yeah, of course. So we have email. So it's info@maitricenter.com, which is MAITRICENTRE.com. We also have a website as well, and you'll be able to find, we have meditations that we do on our YouTube channel. We have a podcast called the Love and Compassion Podcast with Giselle, where we talk about the power of love and compassion and being able to heal our lives and our world, as well as some other free stuff. So you can check us out.
Nice.
I don't have anything to add.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being a guest in my show. I truly enjoyed your presence. And after the training I had, I also know a bit more about your business. Of course, I don't know all the details, but I get where you're going. I think that's where everybody should be going. So hopefully you get lots more clients because people need this. Yeah, I think we need this mind shift actually to make the world a better place, so to speak. And I wish you all the best, and let's stay in touch.
Thank you very much. Nice meeting you.
Thank you so much.
I hope you liked this episode. Make sure to check out the other episodes because each one is filled with interesting and inspiring stories and energy. Are you following your passion as well and make a good living out of it? Contact me and you could be my next guest. Would you like to follow your passion but are not there yet? Check out my website millionaireLifeStrategy.com and book an appointment to discover what I could do for you. Don't forget to share the podcast with your friends so that they get inspired as well.